Our Renaissance community both are my honor to be part of our programming. I partner with Scotty Stamper, the Director of Adult Spiritual Formation, Rosalind Lackey, our admin assistant, who does such great work to keep things on the rails and keep things moving. She's probably the one that you interact with most often when you register or things like that, and you saw her outside when you came in. So I'm grateful for that entire team. I'm also grateful to Hunter, our AV coordinator. I'm not quite sure what your title is, but master of all things, especially the humorous. And so I'm grateful to him for the work so you can hear me, so things are recorded today and we can share this message more broadly. And our facilities team, Andrea in the kitchen, I'm just going to thank everybody for this effort. I'm grateful to you for showing up, but we have to lay the groundwork and we have to open up this space for people to be able to meet. Speaking of the space, we're down here in All Saints Hall. We're on a bit of a sojourn out of the Blue Room and into some different spaces as we figure out the crowd sizes and the timing based on construction and where we can fit at the current moment. So thanks for coming downstairs. Maybe you haven't been here in a while. Maybe you came with a child or a grandchild to the Discovery Service and you haven't been here since then, but I'm grateful to you for coming down here and for being here today. I'm going to open with a prayer and then introduce Dr. Edwards. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Gracious and ever-living God, we give you thanks for this day and for each new day, knowing that you are alongside us in our going out and in our coming in our waking and in our sleeping. Help us to know that we are not alone, whether in the uncertainties of illness or in the joys of long life. Each new day is an opportunity to learn the story of your love more and more, that we might tell that story to every person we meet. Bless our time together and our fellowship, which connects us to your almighty love. In your name we pray. Amen. I'm glad to be able to welcome Dr. Chuck Edwards to Christ Church. Dr. Charles Chuck Edwards is the founding physician of Memory and Movement Charlotte, a nonprofit medical practice that redefines care for people experiencing Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and related conditions. Chuck and his wife Mary have given themselves to this work, offering gifts cultivated through their own experiences and Chuck's medical practice. He is the author of books on the topic, Much Abides, A Survival Guide for Aging Minds, and Late Fragment, Notes on the Later Stages of Life. As an aside, books are available over here after the presentation and around lunch. On a personal note, I've been at Christ Church for a little over 2 years and have heard the legend of Chuck Edwards again and again. I am thankful to finally be able to meet him, and I ask you to join me in welcoming him here today.
Is this working? Legend, huh? Wow. I don't know about that. First of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me. My ears don't stick out that much. That's pretty good. Okay. I've been in this room several times in my life, and it's always been a good experience. Kind of bittersweet today, and I think about a talk I gave here when I was just getting started in this new phase of my life. And I remember looking out at the audience, and I saw a lot of my friends. Jack Hobson was sitting over there, kind of looking grumpy. Turned out to be the nicest patient I've ever had in my life, which was the biggest surprise I've ever had. Mamie Willard was making these copious notes, realizing that if she got what I said, she was going to live forever. I know she was disappointed, and I know if she's up there, she was one of my super agers. She loved to come and be tested just so I could tell her how smart she was. And Pinckney, when I was just getting ready to talk, he said, you know, at Christ Church, people's attention spans are very short. And he said, if you got a choice between being brilliant and brief, be brief. So I'm going to try to live up to that charge. part of this Stuart Garner came to me several months ago and said, Chuck, would you be interested in talking about the prelude to this Center for Aging that y'all are doing? I don't know what you call it. What are y'all going to call it? The Renaissance or something? Is that what it was? Okay. And today we're going to talk a little bit about my experience and why I would be talking to you. And then we're going to get into some serious stuff about what this center, what I would want from that for you all, okay? So when Stuart said that he wanted me to talk, I said, yeah, I'll be glad to. I have so many friends here. And then Melanie came and told me, she said, they're calling this something like the Sages. Well, that kind of put me off, because if y'all are expecting me to be a sage, and that this center, this Renaissance Center's off to a slow and precarious start, I'll tell you that right now. Just on a personal note, a lot of drastic changes have happened in my life, and the original transition to having to do or doing the Memory of Movement Charlotte started with a disability, a murmur, a vibration, a twitch in my left hand. And if you see when I come across, it still is there. And I was given a gift by being able to recover from that. The only reason why I'm sharing it is that each of us comes into contact and has to encounter and has to react to things in their life that they don't like. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. But recently it's gotten a little bit tougher because I stopped seeing patients in December. And I have this strange feeling that I'm wanted somewhere, or I have a group of people waiting on me. And I'll be walking around and it gives me a lot of anxiety. And then Mary comes in and she said, will you stop this? No one's waiting for you. No one is waiting for you to talk. So why don't you just go about your business? That causes me tremendous anxiety. Okay. I'm slowly getting used to the new rules and kind of the new perspective. But, careers, they give us this structure. And they give us this sort of feeling that what we're doing is really important. Okay. They also give us the illusion that if I'm not there to do it, the world is literally going to collapse. And then when it goes on, it gives you this painful wisdom that I wasn't as important as I thought I was. Maybe that's the lesson that we all have, but wisdom comes with pain oftentimes. In fact, almost always. And we have to accept that. Don't be thinking about the mistake I made to get the wisdom, thinking about the new insights I have going forward. I'm here really because I wrote 2 books. If I hadn't written the books, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. But it's really about the vantage point that I was given when I was allowed to enter the lives of the people with memory loss, Parkinson's, and the aging issues. It was a gift. It changed me as a physician. Tom Daniel is out here. He and I trained at Duke together, and he knows this, but I practiced medicine, or I did surgery for close to 40 years. And during that time, I could fix things. People would come to me and they'd have something and I would fix it. And I thought that was pretty cool, The patients, though, would get better and they would go on. And sometimes they would stop me and say, you operated on me 25 years ago. I love to hear that. But I could fix things. These last 10 years, I haven't been able to fix anything. I can help people. I can help the depression, and I can help the torment of the family and things, but I can't fix it. And yet, the relationship I had with my patients and with my families was so intense and so rewarding that actually it was, I don't think I would trade those 10 years for a lot of the adulation that came from those 40 years of being able to fix things. And I think that doctors were probably revered more at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, but at that time they couldn't fix anything either. And but what they did was they sat with those families and shared the torment or the victory or whatever. And that's what I learned, is that it is that closeness to the families. They didn't expect me to fix it. All they knew that if Dr. Edwards was there, that this is really important. And that's where this comes from. The two books came from that experience. And actually that experience is what why I had to stop, because I was so involved with so many families at such an emotional level that I had two choices. One was that I could back off and say people can't have access to me, and then I wouldn't be Chuck Edwards. Or I had to quit. And Mary made the decision that I was going to quit. With the titles of the book, Much Abides, A Survival Guide for Aging Lives, and the second book, Late Fragment, Notes on the Later Stages of Life. I've been accused by a lot of my buddies to saying, you're awfully arrogant. Those are arrogant titles, and it's kind of off-putting. But I'm going to double down on the arrogance today, okay? That the stuff we're going to cover, if you open your heart and open your mind, these things have the potential to change your life. And we're going to get into some stuff that's hard, but there's a great quote about you can never solve a problem until you face it, James Baldwin. And that's what we're going to do today, is to do a little bit of facings. A question that you have, though, is why would this burned-out chest surgeon have anything to say that would be of interest to me? And you'll just have to make up your mind whether or not that's the case. I'm going to change up a little bit toward the end. We're going to go over a lot of the things that I would like to see the Renaissance Center focus on. Because you can have a center and you can have resources, and you can say, we're going to apply the resources to the center. But that's not a good way to start. A good way to start is to saying, we need to understand the people that are going to be in the center, what their lives are like, what their troubles are, what their anguish is, what their victories are, and then map the center around the people and what they need, not what we have and that we can apply to it. And I think that one of the reasons why Stuart asked me to do this and why y'all are having this series is you're trying to get at that truth, and I think that's very important. Much Abides, the first book, it covers the effects of normal aging on our lives. And it's amazing, but we don't realize that our brains are affected by aging. We look in the mirror, okay, and we see those lines. We look at our physiognomy. We look at when we're exercising, we get sore. We know all that, but we don't realize the effects of aging on the brain. And it is really important that we do that, because every week in the clinic, I would have someone call and say, you won't believe what happened. And it would just be part of normal aging, and we can reassure them and go on about their business. The reason why I wrote that book was I realized that normal aging was nothing more than just a subtle suggestion of dementia, but it was there. The dramatic pathological reactions my patients had, and then I would be talking to my buddies And I would say, wait a minute, this sounds exactly like what my patients have. And so I became convinced that I became almost obsessed with the idea of being able to understand it. Science, the scientists, they'll tell you the exact part of the brain that's affected and what the process in the brain is, what's occurring. But they don't tell you how it affects you personally. So all that science is great for the guys that are doing science, but then you have pop culture. And the pop culture tells you, you read these books, oh, you never should do this, you ought to do this. And I thought, this is ridiculous because there's no science behind it. So the first book, Much Abide, was written to address that gap between putting the science behind what happens to us and why we do the things that we do. The second book comes from a much deeper place, actually the very later stages of life. The late fragment is defined as that part of our life that follows careers, early and mid-retirement, travel, volunteering. And it's that last phase of life where everything that the world thinks, everything that's good that's happened to you is over, and you need to prepare. And nothing else is going to happen, except for one thing, your own death. Now, when I told Mary about this subject, she said, that's going to be a real thigh slapper. People are really going to love that. So, why would anyone write a book about this? Well, let me start at the beginning and tell you how it happened. I was given a talk at one of the retirement centers here, and I was thinking about the audience that I was getting ready to deliver, and I realized that Much Abides is about the transition from careers to retirement. And these people were way past that. They were in their mid, late 80s, early 90s, and I started to think about, what are their lives like? What are their hopes? What are their fears? Is there enough hope to match those fears? And that started this almost obsession with, what are their lives like, and is there a way that those lives can be made better? I'm going to read to you from, I had to stop writing for a while. I had interviewed several people, probably about 15 people for the book. And several of them died, and this shadow came over the process. The shadow came over me, and the shadow said, do you really want to get into this? Why? Maybe you'll get struck by lightning and you'll never have to go through this. And also the shadow went over them, and I was worried. I was worried that I was going to get into things and see this sort of torment, and I didn't want to do it. And so my son teaches at Charlotte Latin, and he teaches writing to other teachers, and he's very, very forthright. And so I said, Chuck, look at what I've written so far and tell me what you think. Do you think I can go on here? And he read it, and he said, Dad, there's a lot of good stuff here, but you're not close enough to these people. You are keeping them at arm's length, and you need to get in there and learn more. And when I did, the stories, the bias changed, and I started to understand just what a noble thing that the human spirit is, and that was the gift. I'm going to read to you from the introduction, and it's just a couple of paragraphs. It's not that boring. I have two aspirations for the book. First, that all involved, the children, families, colleagues, even the people next door, will understand the challenges faced by my soulmates in the late stages of life. I want those aging individuals to be approached with honor for the lives they have led. I want this understanding and respect to lead to the development of strategies to ensure that the time left is dignified and, if possible, enjoyable. Second, that the individuals who are living close to the end don't give up. I want them to find new, clever ways to remain vital. They still know things that we need to know. As in other times in my life, what I expected was not what I got, but what I got was far better than what I expected. I was thrown off course early when the search took me to some unexpected dark places. I worried that there would not be enough resolve, enough hope to justify the search. I have never been more wrong in my life. The more individuals I interviewed, listened to, and befriended, the more I realized the courage, resolve, and tenacity in these individuals was more than a match for the challenges of living a long time. We are going to cover these challenges in depth and offer soft suggestions and directions for meeting and overcoming them. More importantly, I need your trust that I would never have started this book unless I thought I could deliver on the promise of making this late fragment of life not just tolerable, but worthy of the lives that preceded it. This will be a wild ride. Hold on. So that's where I started. The books share three themes. One is the preciousness of time. The second is, and most important, is that in each phase of our lives, we have to make adjustments that match the harmonic of that time. For instance, if you take a sophomore in high school and put him as CEO of IBM, it's not going to work, is it? Okay? Although they seem to try it more often than not, I don't know, with these new e-commerce companies. But understanding also that the last stages of life, ironically, require more adjustment. Okay? Eliot wrote the words, "No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was I meant to be. I am there to advise the prince and to swell a scene, but it's not about me." And at times, each of us in our own way, as a mother that's central to a family, or a sister that's central to a whole family, or a breadwinner, we are Prince Hamlet. We are what it's about. But if we try to take that central role into later stages in life, we become more isolated, and the interactions we have with others become strained. And we're going to talk about that. All right, let's begin with time. Oh, the third thing, is the crucial importance of human interaction and how these bonds, as we get older, become more important. The irony is that as we age, we have more of a tendency to want to be alone. We spend more time alone. And yet, human interaction, that vital bond, is what we need that brings life joy and relevance. And so we have to fight off those tendencies to be alone. So let's begin with time. Today in the United States, there are 80,000 people that are 100 years old or greater. In 2050, just 26 years from now, and you think about the year 2000, that was just around the corner, and this is going to happen fast. There are going to be 400,000 people over 100 years old. Some of the people in this room, I don't know, are still going to be here. There might be a few, okay? Maybe I'm hoping I'm one of them, but I don't know. But the longer you live, the longer you're going to live. All right, the numbers work for you. If you make it to 75, the average age at death is 85. If you make it to 80, the average age is 90. Okay? Someone just came up and said that they just had their 80th birthday. My oldest grandchild just turned 20. I don't know why that just freaked me out. Mary and I, your birthdays and stuff doesn't matter, but little Mary, is 20 years old? No, that's not fair. 90, if you live to 90, you get to 95. And then, like my mother-in-law, Ms. Babcock, she got to 100, and she died at 102. Okay, so, But, modern medicine has given us a gift, the antibiotics, the vaccines, and probably one of the major things, of course, is safe childbirth for women. At the turn of the century, like 1 out of every 40 women that had a baby died in childbirth. I mean, it's just, the numbers are horrifying. But in 2020 and 2021 was the first time in the history of the United States that the longevity of a citizen didn't get longer. And they said, oh, it was COVID. No, it wasn't COVID, because, a lot of the people in COVID, they were older and they died. It didn't change the numbers. But what did change the numbers is fentanyl. Each one of those years, we lost over 100,000 young people to fentanyl overdose. And so that changed the fact that the lifespan of the average American actually dropped instead of... But this added time that we're having from medicine and being a little bit healthier, there's a catch. When will I receive this benefit? Will I have more time in school? Will I have more than 4 years at UVA? Will my children be with me longer? Be careful what you wish for on that one. Okay. Sadly, no. There are some benefits, but they're going to be marginal. Careers would be a little bit longer. My career was longer than my father's, and my son's or my daughter's might be longer. And active retirement may be a longer time, but the majority of the time will come late. It will be tacked on to the end in what we call a late fragment. Now, the term late fragment comes from a poem by a writer named Raymond Carver. Some of you may be familiar. He's a terrific short story writer, and he's a poet. But he is raw. He uses words powerfully. And I knew that I wouldn't be disappointed in tracking down this poem, Late Fragment. It's real short. But Raymond Carver tried to kill himself with alcohol and died 10 years, stopped drinking. One of the best poems he wrote was Gravy, which was the last 10 years. But he wrote, on his deathbed, he wrote a poem. And it's real short. And did you get what you wanted out of life? Even so. I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved and to feel beloved on this earth. Very short. 2 questions, 2 answers. But he throws in the words, even so. Okay? Even so has this slang. It's a throwaway. But it is so powerful because it means even so, with all the ups and downs of your life, the things that you did well or the things you did badly, or the things or the trauma that we carry with us, what is the balance? What's the balance? Even so. I use it, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. The second thing is the word beloved. There would be as many definitions of the word beloved in this room as there are people here. It might have been a lover, a spouse, a child, a mentor, whatever it is that you want to be beloved by these people. But I can assure you one thing, that the definition of beloved will include other human beings. It cannot, in this last phase of life, cannot come full bloom until we realize that the relationship with other people, not necessarily our families, but including our families, has to do with a positive and soulful connection to other people. It is the authentic single source of authenticity in every life. And that's where this center can make a difference. Now, my goal in writing that book was not to have you walking around thinking about death all the time. Okay? That was not the purpose. What was the purpose is that have a subtle reminder in your head that at some point in time is going to run out and I will not be here. And what I wanted from that is to have that increase the preciousness of time and increase the commitment and the relationship with other people. Okay? People, you say, well, I'm going to leave my kids a bunch of money. Doesn't matter, okay? They're going to spend it. And if we're aware up there, you're going to be really mad, okay? Why is he buying that, But to use that money to enhance the relationship, to take a trip or just some sort of, not when they're dead, or to help a child get their first house, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But what it is it should be, because the gift of love and security, they carry with every day in their lives, okay? An affirmation, I'm proud of you. They will carry that. They'll say, my mother, my father, they don't care about, well, some do, I guess, about the money, but you're not going to influence them anyway. But just realize that the currency is the love, not the money. And having people come closer to you and being aware that at some point in time, you will not be here to be able to have that effect. So that's when it should, and I saw this over and over, and I'll tell you why. All right. So one of on the jacket it says, late fragment is a study of the last stages of human life and the thoughts, fears, hopes, and actions of those living in it. It is intended to guide us through the challenges of today, longer lives, to ensure relevance, purpose, and joy. In this late fragment, okay, in every other phase of our life, we have time to adjust to mistakes and failures. Right? We can say, oh gosh, I retired early and I moved to Hilton Head. Oh, I hated Hilton Head, so I moved to Kiowa, and this is the best place on the planet. Okay, but we have time to adjust. Late fragment, the definition of time and the future change. It's almost as if they've taken this game that we've played, that we know so well. We know how to sacrifice. We're boomers, okay? We know how to walk into a room and say, all right, there are about 15 or 20 people at this bridge club, and I think I'm a better bridge player than 18 of them. It's just the way that our minds work, because the first day of school, we had to look at the new building out there and all these kids trying out for the play in school. You knew that there was a really good chance that you were not going to make it because there was always so damn many of us. Sports. And so we've learned to compete with one another, okay? Compete. How can I do that better than this guy? My vacation house is bigger than his. But in the late fragment, all that goes away. It's like someone in the game has moved the goalpost, has taken it and said, these aren't the rules anymore. In fact, it's not even the same game. It is completely different. So as we age, we have to come up with new values, a new value system, and that's where the joy and relevance come from. I interviewed close to 70 individuals for this. Some of them were formal and they knew they were being interviewed, and some were not formal and they didn't know they were being interviewed, but they were all asked the same question. And at first I wasn't very good at it. There was a bias. The people that looked like that they had it all together, you talk to them and they would give you these rote answers and stuff. And I didn't know what the answers meant. And then after my son gave me this charge, I got really good at the interview, and I also got good at knowing where to go. And I saw this sort of pattern evolve that came out in a word that there's a certain number of people were fearless. They didn't fear the future. They had such gratitude for their lives, and they just seemed to, and they didn't want to tell you that they were president of this or they had done that. That was all gone. What they did want to tell you was that I am close to my family or whatever. But I saw this pattern. And I saw people, and they would sit down, and I'd say, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, I was the vice president of In Charlotte, we're the only city in the world that worships bankers, okay? Here's Ken Thompson sitting here. New York City, they worship people with money. If you got money in New York, they don't care how you got it. It's just, you're proud of it. Philadelphia, they only care about who your parents were. They don't care if you got money. It's your pedigree. Boston, they care how smart you are. Charlotte, this guy had a big job at the bank. I don't get it, all right? So we worship bankers. But in the book, I talk about sitting down with these people, and all of a sudden I saw this pattern come out and at the end I used the word fearless, this calmness about where they were going. And I can't think of anything that is more important than staring down the end of your life, being fearless and calm. The book is divided into 3 parts. The first is background, and I just tell you who's in it. The second is jeopardy. And this is where my friends say, oh man, that thing was tough. And you feel real good when you write a book and your buddies are telling you this is tough. But what I do is I take you to where you get into trouble. Where are the pitfalls? Where do people get off? I'm going to read just a very short little discussion I had. This lady, all of the stories in the book are true, but I changed the names and I changed the details. But this one lady she and her husband had lived in Salisbury, and they had this idyllic life. And 2 or 3 of their friends had left, and he had gone to Davidson, and so they ended up deciding to leave and go to the Pines. The book says they go to Chapel Hill, but I had to hide that. And when they get there, she is really mad. She is terribly upset because she feels like that she's left this idyllic life in Salisbury, and everything about her life was perfect. Her church, her bridge club, her garden club, and the respect for her husband. And here she is in this new surrounding, and she is not going to, she is mad. She is defiant. And what's happened is that she and her husband start to argue all the time. He has some very mild, he was a cardiologist in Salisbury, he used to send me a bunch of patients. And when he came in, he said, Chuck, I would rather be having a heart problem than I would this new job, this new gig you got. But actually he was doing okay, but he was depressed. And so we go through this, and I talk to her. I call her Paige, and the name of the chapter is Unrealistic Expectations. Let's see if I can. So we have this little breakdown, and and I say, I think that the reason why we're in this situation is because you are so unhappy, and it spilled over to your husband Spence. Paige, no, the CHE, Paige, no one is pinning this on you. I would like to share my early observations here and offer a few suggestions that might get us pointed in the right direction. Are you up for this? And so I described to her that her life in Salisbury is gone. The people that were in the bridge club and all that stuff are gone. She has trouble accepting that. And then she says that I've made this terrible mistake. Paige says to me, if this is so obvious to you, why is it not obvious to me? Why is it always front and center in my brain? CHE. Now we're getting into it. The answer is that the first illusion allows you to avoid coming face to face with the second illusion. The second illusion is that your life will go on unimpeded. Aging will not be a factor, and you won't have to contend with your inability to play tennis, your husband's fragile memory, and being forced out of your comfort zone by time and physical decline. She had fooled herself for blaming the decision instead of coming face to face with what the reality really was. By focusing on the move, you avoided the pain that comes from counting the irrevocable and certain consequences of aging. Now we have established the real enemy, not the move, but the attacks on us from the passage of time. And she says, how do I solve it? How do I face it? And I've said, you've already started when you said, I'm not giving up. That defiance is the crucial element we need to make this work. Explain that to me, she says. You've already drawn lines you refuse to cross, certain declines you refuse to surrender to. You have just drawn them in the wrong place. We want the defiance, but we want it placed where it can dissolve this anger this anger and isolation. I say to her, now that we've established the real enemy, not the move, but the attacks on us from the passage of time, we can use the weapons we possess more strategically. You have drawn the lines of defense too close to you. You have not included your husband, and he is suffering from this isolation and anger. I want the defiance to say, I'm going to protect this marvelous man, and the two of us will be a formidable team to fight this potential for despair. I want the defiance to say, my attitude, my perspective can make any situation better, and I refuse to let selfish, negative thoughts undermine our struggle. I want the defiance to say, I have room for new friends that I can connect with to give and receive help when needed. I want the defiance to say, I realize now that I have to connect with others through our shared vulnerabilities, not the remorse of things that I have lost. Paige says, wow, you're setting some high bars for me. And I say, yes, but small steps. So 1 month later, Paige, I should be furious at you. You call me selfish, angry, delusional, and implied even more sinister attributes. She was really pissed off at me. I had always considered myself a good person. So I kind of comfort her, and I say to her at the end, I said, I'm proud of you, especially for not firing me. Paige, don't think you're out of the woods yet. So that gives you an idea of the second part of the book called Jeopardy, where we go into the depths of abnormal grief reactions, prolonged grief reactions, loneliness. We talk somewhat about suicide. We talk about how loneliness has the science, called the chapters the science behind despair, or the science of despair. So that gives you some idea, and that sets us up for the grab bars, for the last part, which is called Directive. Directive is from a poem by Robert Frost. If you love poetry, go read it. It's one of the most beautiful poems. And what it does, I take you down several paths to show you what we got to hold on to in those later stages. But it's different than what you would realize. It has to do with, anybody here go to Myers Park High School? Okay. How many had Miss Baker? Did anybody have Miss Baker? All right. So Miss Brooks in the book is Miss Baker. And I wrote about her teaching style. Now, and you remember Miss Carmichael and Miss Sifford, they lived in that house that was over by the school. And I use sort of Miss Baker and her sister in lieu of Miss Carmichael and Miss Sifford living over in that, because they were so cool. I loved them. We'd go by and I'd talk to them on the porch. And Miss Sifford was the one that told me that I needed to stop clowning around and start studying. She said, I'm not sure, but I do think you have some potential. And it's not going to be basketball. And she knew that long before I did. But the story is about resilience and about her sister dies. Miss Baker didn't have a sister, I don't think. This is another lady that I interviewed, and I just put those two stories together. But I did use Miss Baker because she started every single class with quotes. And for some reason, I can still remember every one of them. She had that effect on me. There's a story about Vital Links really important that as we age, a lot of the people that mean so much to us or who have meant so much to us are gone. They're dead. But that doesn't mean their effect has to be gone. If we keep them in our minds and up close, we can use their positive to guide us. So that was called Vital Links, and there's a story about a man. Also a story about a young man that brings his 90-year-old mother to the office, and they have to work through his childhood and the alcoholism of his father to get to a relationship where they were able to make it work. So those are the grab bars that I give you. All right, so we're going to get into some stuff now. Are we doing okay on time? Yes? Does anybody want to quit? All right. In the book, Much Abides, I give you 10 mistakes that people make in their lives that undermine their ability to be calm and relevant. I'm going to share 2 of them. These are 2 kind of throwaways. The 8 really good ones are in the book, okay? Every week I had people come, as I said, and say, I'm losing it, I have it, my father had it, and I've got, and I tell a story about a guy that's playing golf, and he can't remember. His wife says, who did you play with today? And he says, I can't remember who the other 3 guys are. It happens all the time. It happens to me. He said, actually, when I was on the first tee, I couldn't remember their names. I had to sneak around and look at their bags to see what their names were. He said, I'm losing it. And then he left the door of his freezer open 2 nights in a row. And so his wife's thinking, here we go. Well, we bring him in and we work him up. But so that's the kind of stories that are in Much Abides. So here are the things you don't need to worry about, okay? First is names. I don't care about names. When people come and say, I can't remember a name, we are wired. Think about this. When you can't remember someone's name, you can remember everything about him. You'll say, oh, that guy, what's his name? I remember he had the best looking sister that I'd ever seen, you know, and you can remember her name for sure, okay? So what happens is that names, we are programmed with fluid intelligence to up until 27 or 28, that fluid intelligence gets better, okay? That is when we learn things without using memory. The SAT is that, okay? That you have to figure it out without using life experiences. Crystallized intelligence is having life experiences. So I don't care about names. Technology. One of the chapters in the book is about this technology where one of the guys that comes to me says, I've lost the ability to turn my television on, okay? And he can't figure it out. Well, apparently there's some button that you push that makes it so you can't do that ever, okay? You can't do that ever. But actually, technology has changed aging because my grandfather was reverential in our lives. If he walked in here, he'd have on a Panama hat, these seersucker, and he probably finished the 8th grade. He was a politician in Boston, and he took us everywhere. And when he said something, I can still remember these things that he would tell us. He would take us to a battlefield. And I remember when we were younger, he'd tell us these great stories of where everything went, who was, you know, that the Rebs were stacked up underneath your arms. They were dead in this, this road. And then, of course, we realized that he didn't have any idea where he was. You know, he didn't know. In fact, one time he was telling us all about the Union soldiers, and it was a Revolutionary War battlefield, but it didn't matter. But we loved him, and everything he said was gospel. My grandchildren, they think they're smarter than me because they can pull that phone out of my hand and they will take it and they'll hand it back to you like, here, dumbass, and they'll throw it to you. So it's changed. They think they're smarter than I am, okay? And I know they're not, but, you know, I'm having trouble with that. All right. Eras. One lady just came up to me who is a super ager. Super agers come to the office to be tested. so you can tell them that they're superagers. There's a chapter in the book, and they'll say, when can I come back? And I'll say, you can't come back. We got sick people. They say, oh, I want to come back. I love getting this good grade. I mean, it's terrible. Superagers, they walk into a room and they immediately can see what doesn't fit. Errors. They'll pick them up immediately. The chapter in the book is funny because it's based on this one woman. But we have to be much more careful as we age and picking up errors, okay? It used to be that you would, do your checkbook, and you would do it in 15 minutes. It was perfect, and you were down to the penny. Of course, Mary feels like as long as she's got checks, she's got money. Now, I don't know how it's going to work long term, but she said, we're doing fine. Oh, really? Yeah, see, we've got a bunch of checks left. She would kill me on that one. Going into a room, okay? You're putting up a picture, and you say, oh, I need some nails. And you go downstairs, and you get downstairs, and you cannot remember what you're there for, okay? And you think, oh, my God, I'm losing it. I am literally losing it. Or you're driving, and you realize that you're going over a bridge that you've gone over 1,000 times, and you go, have I been over the bridge yet or not? I don't care about those things. What you do when you can't remember when you're down in the other place, you go back upstairs, you see the picture, you say, oh, nails, and then you go down. If you forget it the second time, you got a problem. Okay? Come see me. All right. Mistakes. I really don't care about, we all have these huge glitches where we'll do something so stupid you can't even believe it. So on Thursday mornings, I used to see patients either in their homes or in their facilities. And I used to go, where the Giant Genie was on Park Road where the creek comes across? It's called, now there's a place in there, there's a coffee place in the back. And they're both dead now, but there was a woman that was a caregiver who had a little kiosk there. She had a little shop. And her husband sat on a bench and watched the world go by, and he was the patient. So I come out with my coffee, and he goes, I know you. I said, Mr. Jones, you do know me. He said, high school. We went to high school together. I said, no. I said, Mr. Jones, I'm your memory doctor. He said, you're doing a terrible job. Okay. And so then I get in the car and I start to drive away. And he comes screaming at me, and I'm thinking, what now? And I roll the window down. He reaches up and grabs my coffee off the top of the car, and he hands it to me. And he says, you don't know how good this makes me feel. Okay? So we're all going to do those crazy things, okay? And we just move on. It's like one and done. I'm not going to carry around the problem that I think that I'm losing my memory. Even if we have mild memory loss, anxiety over memory loss causes memory loss. So move on, okay? Move on. I say this to people, they say, oh, I can't believe that. If I had to choose between having a major stroke and having some mild memory loss, I'll take the mild memory loss every time, okay? It's just one little glitch, and it bothers me sometimes, but otherwise, off you go. Okay, what can I do to protect my brain? Because if I'm at this age, I don't particularly want to give everything up. I want to protect it. What do I have to do? Okay. Now, if you ask a group of people in here their biggest fear about life, what do you think the answer would be? Getting cancer or getting dementia? It's almost always the same thing. What do you think it is? Afraid of running out of money. Okay? And we used to put cards out, and that would be number one. The number one number in your life has nothing to do with money. You think it's when you get your paper from the investment company, the monthly statement, and you think that number has a lot of significance. It doesn't, all right? In fact, if you can't turn that number into joy in your life, it doesn't exist. So start spending your money. Bounce the check to the undertaker, all right? Ken Poe introduced me one time, and he was up there and he said, I heard that line that you said one time. He said, bounced the check to the undertaker. He said, I didn't think that was all that cool. You know, he said. So the most important number in your life is your blood pressure, okay? And I have to say that this business of white coat syndrome, which means you only have hypertension in the doctor's office, doesn't exist, okay? If you are a hot reactor, meaning that when you get upset or you're nervous, your blood pressure goes up, that means it happens all the time. So people who have the white coat syndrome actually have more heart attacks, more strokes, more congestive heart failure. So if you go in there and you go, your blood pressure is 165 over 98, and the nurse says, oh, you're a little nervous today. You say, you know, I'm not a little nervous, and I want this treated. But they have a tendency as you get older to think, well, this guy's had blood pressure problems all his life, it's not a big deal. But hypertension drives memory loss, it drives heart failure, it drives heart attacks. It is by far the most important number. Do not allow them to blow you off. Second thing is, the number one marker for memory loss in a lifetime is not genetics, it is hearing loss. So if you have trouble hearing, and it's not that you don't hear, it's that it's not clear, okay? I just had to go to the VA because Mary we do these when we're driving, we do the crossword puzzle, and she's got the crossword there, and I'm listening to the clue, and she's saying, you know, I'm saying, what? And she said, you can't hear anything. I said, I hear fine. She said, you're going to go. And so I went to the VA, and the guy comes in, and he says, all right, Colonel, we're going to check your hearing. When you hear the beep, go ahead and just give me a sign. You know the drill. And so then I thought he went to lunch, you know. And he opens up the door and said, are you all right? And the next thing I know, I'm walking out with, you know, hearing aids. So hearing is the number one marker for hearing loss, okay? Third thing, sleep. I can't stand it when someone says, I can get 4 hours of sleep and I'm perfect, okay? And that's supposed to be some sort of macho thing. I like people to get a minimum of 9 hours of sleep, minimum, because memories are recorded going short-term to long-term memories only if you sleep. And also, when you sleep and you go into those deep stages of sleep, your neurons in your brain shrink, and it allows these Pac-Man things called microglia to take all the toxins out of your brain. So sleep is really good. I know women hate to see men sleep or nap, okay? They hate it. You know, I could have operated all night long, and I'm sitting there with Mary saying, are you going to sleep all day? You know, well, so if you're a guy and you take a nap after breakfast and a nap after lunch, more power to you, okay? That's a good thing, all right? Don't listen to your wife. Alcohol. I like my patients to have at least 2 or 3 days a week that they don't drink alcohol at all right? And the reason is a couple of reasons. One is that the effects of alcohol prevent you from going into those deeper stages of sleep. Sedation is not the same thing as sleep. Sleep has marvelous positive effects. Sedation does not. Michael Jackson found that out with the propofol, that he would, every night they would give him propofol, and he was more tired the next day than he was, and he got into this terrible eddy. Alcohol, in just having that little bit of discipline, you know, I don't have any problems with alcohol. I went to the UVA in the 60s, and I'm certainly okay with drinking. But it's just a matter of having that little bit of discipline and not look that forward to that 5 o'clock when it comes around. I'm only going to talk about a couple of destructive medications. And I want to be careful here because a lot of people are on them. If you're on these, I don't want you to stop. I don't want you to stop them. I'd like you to discuss it with your physician. But the drugs are the benzodiazepams, Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, and the sleep medication Ambien. They are terribly addicting, I think anybody that is on them knows that if I don't have my Ambien, I'm going to be really nervous. They will. Incidence of falls goes up dramatically, and as we age, our ability to recover from a fall goes down. And so I just want to say that they also affect memory. They also affect relationships because you become addicted to them, and then you think about it all the time. Exercise. The problem with exercise is you have a bunch of crazy people that ruin it for everyone else. Okay? So you mentioned, I thought about doing a 5K. And so I walked and I ran a 5K. And you're at your car and they've given you the 5K sticker. And you look next door and there's a guy with a 10K sticker on there, okay? He said, hey, I saw you walking. You doing all right? Well, so people, there's about 5 people in the world that are crazy, okay? And they have a 100K sticker on their car, all right? Just to make everybody else feel bad. Whatever exercise you can do is positive. Every time you are walking, or you are going out to the mailbox, or you go over to the Cornwell Center and you're walking on the track, and let's say you do 10 laps. That is so beneficial because your body then has this BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that just floods. And if you take that neurotrophic factor and just drip it on neurons, they become rich and interdigitate and everything. So any exercise you can do, and don't, just because someone tells you that they do more than you, doesn't matter, okay? Doesn't matter. Dental issues. One of the inflammation and periodontal disease, people that have periodontal disease have a higher incidence of dementia. It's probably the inflammation, but don't, you think, oh, I'm 81 years old. I don't need to go to the dentist. Yes, you do. Okay? Yes, you do. All right, the Aging Center. I just want to make a couple more points. We okay here, do you think? All right. All right. We're going to call this Step Into the Story. Okay? That was given to me by those 2 ladies over there. My nurse Shelley and Melanie Barron, who is our sort of director of everything at Memory and Movement Charlotte. So the most precious commodity on the planet is not money, okay? It's not gold, it's not diamonds. It's psychic energy. It's the energy in your brain, okay? Because it determines everything. And the energy in your brain, there's another name for it, it's attitude. How am I going to deal with the ups and downs of life? And what creates that energy is simple things like curiosity. I'm curious to see how that works. I want to know more about that part of my life. I want to do a search for my ancestors. I want to know more about World War II. I want to be involved. I want to know how my grandchildren are doing. When you have those thoughts, your brain is starting to click, okay? Reading. I love fiction because when you are reading fiction, you're making the images that you would make if you were doing something. So let's say that you are reading about skiing down the Alps. Your brain will light up in the area where skiing down the Alps occurs. That's why romance novels are so bestsellers, because when you're reading about falling in love, there it is. Your brain is just, oh, this is so good, All right. Also, a fascination with the everyday details of life. That what are we doing today? What are we doing? Where are we going to lunch? And you say, well, it doesn't seem very important. Well, lives, that the things that you may have done when you were in the corridors of power and did some big deal, probably is not as important as you thought. And maybe having lunch with your granddaughter is really important, and it's especially really important to you. The second, and this is probably the most important thing I'm going to say, our ability to stay relevant and connected to joy and positivity depends on our ability to deal with loss. We are going to be tested. In anyone's life, we are going to lose things that are irreplaceable. And we're going to be asked to live with the loss of maybe some of our cognitive issues, some of our physical issues, and then, of course, the tragedy of losing people that you love that are irreplaceable. How do you do that? How do you survive with that type of heartache? It requires the fact that, and the Stoics are really good on this, but that there's a cycle of life. Some people have long lives, people have short lives, and we don't have control over that. And we can mourn their loss. I talk a lot about it in the book, about normal and abnormal grief reactions, but this is one of the most important things. Overcoming it requires resilience and courage to keep risking, to keep striving, the refusal to give up, just saying, I don't know what it's going to take, but I am not going to allow this crush me. Alone can ward off loneliness, despair, and the worst enemy, obviously, is silent suffering. One of the things about this Renaissance feature that y'all are planning is that you have to know the people among you. You have to know their stories. You have to step into their story, get to know it, and then adjust the mission to what the needs are. Okay? I want to talk about one last thing, and then I'm going to stop. We live in an anxious world. People have always been anxious, but they're more anxious now than they've ever been. Anxiety is painful uneasiness. Something's not right. I feel like that I'm not in sync, and I'm terribly nervous. Anxiety comes from three things. One is that you're born with it. It has been selected for millions of years. We select for it because if you're nervous, you're not going to get near a raging river, or at night, you're not going out to get eaten by a mammoth. All right, you're going to stay in that, and then when you stay there, there's probably, a guy or a girl going to match up, and that's where you're going to procreate. And so nervous Nellies are running the world, okay? The second thing is our life experiences, not trusting the system. If someone calls you on the phone and it's a catastrophe, and you never trust that phone again, okay? Also, think about this. When we are, let's say that you win the award, English award at school, or Best Actress Award or Best Actor Award, and you go up there and you get it, and you say, this is the way I'm supposed to feel. This is terrific. And you get this glow, and it lasts 24 hours. And then it's back to work, okay? We don't get that nice feeling that we got when we got up to the award. But you do something stupid, you embarrass yourself, or you say something that hurts another person, you live with that embarrassment for your whole life. And when you think of it, you get the same shameful reaction. You go, oh, how could I have done that? Oh, it happened 50 years ago, but you still. So we carry this emotional hoarding with us. And so we're kind of nervous. Now, I don't know what we did when we raised our children, but our children have made their children really nervous, okay? Your grandchildren are really nervous. All right, the antidote to anxiety is the five senses, and specifically the sense of touch. This is simple, that if you reach out and grab someone's hand, or you're walking with your wife or your children, or it doesn't matter, the image and what's taken from that is that we're secure, we're okay. When you hug people, okay, now, of course, It used to be we hugged each other all the time, but of course now you can't hug anybody. You know, this sounds strange, but when I had a brave woman who went through a operation that I had done, that morning in the intensive care unit, I would give her a little kiss on the forehead, and I would say, you know, I am so proud of you for doing this. I would be in jail now if I did that, okay? You know, but, you know, people have told me, I remember when you kissed me after that operation. Now, it wasn't a big deal, but it was just a sign of one human being to another that I see what you're doing, and I appreciate that. My wife tells me when I tell this is that, Chuck, I want you to remind them that talking is not one of the 5 senses, but listening is, okay? And she will be happy when I do. But listening to other humans, just sitting there, and instead of having your issue and having to get it out and being real nervous about it, just listen. Because when they tell you what's going on in their lives, sometimes it makes you feel better, or there's a way that you can help. Listening, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, they are calming. But what we do is we sit down and we start eating right away instead of realizing someone's prepared this and it's going to be good. So the 5 senses. Also part of that is find places that are safe havens for you. A place where it might be a part of your house, it might be the library, it might be anywhere, but you go there and that's your calm place. That's a place where you go and your whole being just kind of relaxes and saying, I can do this. I can do this. All right. Thank you.